Hi, welcome to NDE TV. I'm Peggy Robinson. Today's guest is Vena, and she's going to tell us about her near-death experience. Hi, Vena.
Hello, hello.
It feels so fake. We just got done talking, and I introduced us like, "Hi." It's like maybe I need to change that. So feel free to start wherever you like, and take as long as you like, and I'll be right here, and we'll just have a conversation about it.
Okay, okay. So I'm sure maybe a few people have already I know I've already been they're calling me the No Doze Queen um because I had my near-death experience due to sort of an overdose of No Doze. Caffeine pills. It was during a trip to Italy that I took when I was 17. And I'd been so excited, before the trip and didn't really sleep. And then on the airplane, I didn't sleep because it was my first time on a plane. And by the time we arrived, I was like frazzled out. I was kind of tired and exhausted, but excited. So, I'm just everywhere. So my mother had given me some vitamins because she's always been a vitamin taker and enough for the whole trip, mind you. But I also had these caffeine pills, and I decided, you know what? I'm going to take some of the vitamins and some of the caffeine pills, get
With
some
no
energy.
dose?
Yes. Look, I was only 17.
Right.
Okay, what do you want? And so I said, I'm going to take some of the vitamins and the caffeine pills, and I shoved a whole bunch of them in my mouth. It was more caffeine pills than it was the vitamins. Um,
I shouldn't laugh because I remember I went through a dark time when I was 16, and people would give me a handful of pills. I didn't know what they were, and I would take them because I was suicidal at that
oh,
time. I didn't care
oh,
what. I would just go to sleep. But see, I get that at that age, you just don't comprehend.
you don't. And you just have no, I had no clue, all I knew is that people were saying, hey, it just keeps you awake, and so, okay, uh,
Yeah.
that's all, I thought
Yeah,
about.
you weren't trying to do anything bad.
No, not at all, not at all. But I did take quite a few of the no-dos, the caffeine, and to the point where when I was swallowing them at the airport water fountain, some of them were falling out of my mouth. That's how many I had in my mouth. And so I gathered them back up, put them in, and swallowed them. And we got our luggage, and we're going out to the bus. And I started feeling like the effects of them. It didn't take long, and by the time we got our luggage on the bus and I'm actually on the bus. I was a mess. My reaction to them was just I was frazzled. I was nervous. I felt itchy, jumping out of my skin. So I said, you know what? Let me just rest a little bit, half laying down, half sitting up. And my poor heart, we never hear our heart in our ears, but I did. I started to hear it, and it was rumbling and it was rolling really fast and beating really, really fast. And it was scary as heck. And then after a while, it just did the complete opposite. Like it must have reached a peak where it probably couldn't beat that fast anymore. And next thing I know, it started slowing down. Boom, boom. And I heard that boom, 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 boom. And that last boom, I didn't hear the boom, boom. And it just stopped. And as soon as it stopped, like I had my body jerked so violently, and my spirit just popped right out of my body.
Was it a seizure from this or?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I guess I don't know. I
Okay.
don't know. But I do know that the minute I couldn't hear my heart anymore, that's when I jerked. And I was out, you know. was out of my body. And it was but here's the thing, you don't feel you're not dead, like you're very alive. I was so alive. I felt um so light and so free and so expanded, and like my view of everything was of everything. Like I could just see everything around, and even beyond just around the immediate area.
Like
um,
what were you saying?
I was seeing well, first let me just tell you this. You're not seeing just the three dimension. You're seeing the three dimension, but you're seeing the energy off of that three dimensions, or the third dimension. So there was so much energy, so much light around everything,
Were you out
whether
of the
it was
plane? Like,
animate or inanimate. Pardon?
were you out of the plane and looking below, or
No, I was on the bus. I was on
a
the bus.
bus? Okay.
Yeah. And I was, you see the energy from things, not only the people. I saw the energy from them on the bus. Like, I know now that it was their auric fields, but back then I didn't know what that was. I just knew that these people on the bus had like all this energy shooting off of them. Um, and I'm looking at my body, and I had like hardly any energy. There was nothing almost coming from my body. No light whatsoever. It was just the faintest of light, and everyone else's was just spurts of all this
Was
energy.
you at the ceiling of the bus, or was
No,
it?
I wasn't totally at the ceiling, but um, I guess I was more midway um, between the ceiling and the floor. But at one point, um, and I know this sounds super duper weird, but the bus was moving, and my being, my consciousness, my spiritual form at that time wasn't really keeping up with the bus moving. So I almost came out of the bus, and I consciously had to make myself back going with the movement of the bus.
Makes
And I
sense.
sort of had to keep like do that, for a bit, because the bus was traveling.
Yeah, so we're not physical in them moments to
Right,
like.
right. Like my spirit form could have and at one point it did like move out partially halfway out of the bus, but then I grabbed it back in. I consciously made the decision to come back in. But yeah, that was kind of funny and weird. But and remember, like I don't know what's going on. I don't know that I'm dead, but I know it was awfully strange seeing myself just laying there on that bus bench, you know. Um
And nobody noticed at first, like.
no, well, at the time that my body jerked out, my eyes were closed. And when it came out, you know, at that particular moment, I don't know if they saw the jerk. Now, afterwards, when I saw all all this energy, and, everyone was talking amongst themselves and animated, no, they weren't really paying attention to me at all. Not at all, which probably is a good thing, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, because I was able to have the experience without anyone really trying to shake my
Mhm.
body or.
That's the way mine was in the emergency room in a wheelchair. Like I was slumped over dead, but they were just nurses talking behind me, just like that happened. They didn't
Right.
know when I come back, like they didn't even know I died.
Oh wow, yeah. Do you think they would have interrupted you if they had noticed, or
And then there's that time you're out. Like, how long was you out? I was only
right?
25. So, I had this whole experience, and then I I'm back in. Oh my gosh, I was just in heaven accepting it. I'm thinking they don't even know their patient just died. They're too busy socializing, is what I thought. I remember my exact thoughts. And
Right,
a
right,
second from the ceiling, I looked down before I got back in my body, and I see him back there talking. I see my head slumped over, so I know what I
right,
looked like. They must have just thought I was sick because I told them I
right.
was about to throw up. I thought I was going to pass out, so they just, no, this pregnant girl's sick.
So you understand when I say like you
Yeah.
could see every which way, you're seeing
Well,
everything almost.
not in that NDE, but my 5-year-old NDE, yes. When I was hovering on the
Oh,
ground, it was out of body. So I get what you're saying there.
okay. Yeah.
I watched people, I watched my family and below. Mhm.
Oh, wow.
But I didn't
Okay.
see the
Yeah.
energies and stuff like that. I felt their
Right.
emotions though.
Right. There's energy like everything has energy. Everything, and it's
See,
fascinating.
I didn't feel that like you did. You got that. I just felt the emotions. That my brain
Okay.
was dark,
Okay.
careless emotion. And later my mom, my sister's like secretive, or we're gonna be in trouble because she drowned, my
Oh,
mom, my sister.
wow.
So, I felt that, their emotions. And so, but you're feeling energies.
Energies. Yeah, I mean, I'm feeling the energies. I'm hearing the energies because I heard the bus driver, but I didn't hear him. But his when he let out some type of curse, which of course I can't say, but
Huh?
at the traffic that was going by, I heard that, but not physically hearing, but the energy with it. Um, I'll just say it wasn't an auditory here, but I heard it spiritually. And as well as like the energy of the traffic that was racing by, because I don't know if you've ever been to Italy, but they're maniacs, driving maniacs. And there was a lot of chaotic energy out there on that highway, and I could feel that energy from these drivers. Um, but yeah, at one point, I focused on the bus driver, um, and I saw like a bunch of stuff about him. You know, Not that I was trying, but it was just like his spirit just opened up to me, and I was able to see so much about him. He was sick. He was kind of rambunctious guy. Um, and just like a bunch of stuff just started flowing to me about him. Some of his past lives, not all of them, but it was like three of them. Um, and I got a confirmation of one of his past lives. I was shown like he was kind of a cruel type of money collector. And I saw him literally in the act of burning someone on their neck with this candle thing. And when I looked again, he had a mark on his neck in this life as our bus driver, this purple birthmark. Like, wow, okay. And I got that correlation of, how like about birthmarks and how they come to be.
It's so strange when you're out of body and you sense these things that you never sensed before.
Right.
And now it's all there and you're just taking it in.
And so much information, when we're outside of our physical brain, mind, and when we're not inhibited by it, I'll put it that way. You'd be surprised at the layers of information that just you're cognizant of. There's so much out there. Um, that's why I kind of like really respect people that can meditate, because I can't. I'm so impatient, and I just can't sit still too long. But fortunately, I don't have to get the same results. But because when people meditate, I mean, they're in that zone of not all knowing, but you're in a zone of awareness that so much is revealed to you. you know, and people don't understand. Um, like when I talk about this with you or with whomever, different facets of it will come out because
Hmm.
there was so much there.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Hmm. Yeah, I learn more all the time. Hearing
Right,
something somebody else says, or just getting even watching. Tell you what, when I watch my own videos back of me talking or being
right.
interviewed, do you do that? You get these aha moments. Like it's weird when you hear yourself back, like, wait
Yeah, I
a minute,
have,
make this
yes,
now I didn't before.
right. I have had a few of those moments. I'm like, oh wow, I actually said that. And not in a bad way, just oh wow, I like wow, okay. You know,
It's a lot
um,
to process.
it is, and it's taken me decades to process that near-death experience.
It just
Not
makes you
only
think about
that,
how dumbed down our brain makes us.
oh my gosh. Oh, yes, yes, absolutely. And then, you know, I talk about this in the book, and I won't even really go into it too much now, but I had an experience with the void many years after the near death experience, and I'm still processing that stuff.
Yeah.
Still, I mean, that was just layers upon layers of information. But anyway, yeah, so it's when you're not inhibited by this brain, there's so much to see and to know and to understand. And anyway, so yeah, I got some stuff on the chauffeur, and sorry to get so
No, it's fine. It's fine.
um and then the next thing was this presence kind of overlaid itself over me, and I was taken from the bus into the white, what I call the white realm, not a light, not a tunnel, but a realm. And the bus and the everything about Italy and all that was just forgotten. And it's funny, in this white realm, you know, it was such pure whiteness, so pure, so peaceful, so sublime. But I was super duper alert and cognizant of so much, but at the same time I've never felt so at peace and so loved. And I it's funny because, you know, I had spent so many weeks being excited to be in Italy. I never even thought about the I was in Italy while I was immersed in this white realm, you know. And
Did you realize at that point, once you're in the white realm, I think I died, or what is this place? Or
yeah, I kind of realized, okay, yeah, so I was experiencing something that was, yeah, that was totally out of my realm, um, while in this white realm, because I saw, um, one thing about the white realm, I actually connected with my soul. And it was in the white realm where I understood that our soul is on a completely different level than um, the spirit that inhabits this, Bina or Peggy here. It's like the soul sends the spirit to incarnate, but the soul stays in like this beautiful, pure existence on the other side always. And I connected with an aspect of my soul. And I tell you, Peggy, it was the most enriching, fulfilling experience I've ever experienced. And not only that, it kind of, because of that connection that I experienced, one thing about me, I have plenty of faults, but I could never be mean or hurt anyone deliberately or be cruel. You just can't. Once you make that connection, It's impossible. And I was able to do that in the white realm. And I stayed in there for a bit, and many things were like downloaded into me, or things that I just understood. And then at some point my guide, introduced themselves and
Before
said
you
that they
go on, can you tell me anything that you remember that was downloaded or understood?
sure. One of the main things was that there are so many. I'm not a big Bible quoter at all. But I will say this, when it says in my house are many mansions, that's one thing I can relate to, because there's many different realms that I saw while I was in the white realm. There's many different levels, spiritual levels there. And they're not better than or worse than levels or heaven and hell, nothing like that. It's just different types of beings and levels of creation. And that's one thing that I can't ever forget. Like there's the angelic realm. Um,
Did you like go through these, like
I didn't
visiting or?
I didn't necessarily go through them, but you're aware of them. The angelic realm, I actually couldn't really go to that because it was in such a rarefied atmosphere. Not that I was impure, but
Verified.
they're a whole different type of being. They're not
Huh.
humanoid type beings. They don't ever incarnate. They visit, they can transcend any level or any dimension to help, but they never incarnate. And that was something that I, could see.
Did you saw them?
Yes, you could say that I saw them. Yes, I experienced that realm and those type of beings. Um, but like I said, you can't, well, no, not you, but I was not privy to exist in that realm because I was a different type of being. They are different. They are not humanoid type of beings. Not that they're alien type of beings. They're just a different type of
What
being.
they look like?
They're they had no distinctive features, like their energy, but light energy, the purest of light. And they do have a form, but it's not necessarily, it's very like a vague type of form.
My second NDE has a bright white light, and I just saw a faint outline of like head, shoulder, and down arms, like a human
Right,
figure.
right,
So faint.
right. They're not definitive like we are per se.
Yeah, I'm kind of
Um,
looking at the trim back there on your door. It's white on white, that outline. It wasn't even that
right,
bright, that
right.
pronounced. It was even fainter.
Yes. They're a beautiful beings, and they're, like I said, they don't incarnate. They couldn't be confined to this dimension because they can traverse any dimension, any world, any system. Um, and there's plenty of those systems.
Did you see them moving about?
Well, I mean, they're pulsing. Their energy is, yes. I mean,
You really had
they're
the
moving.
energy. I
They're
mean,
not.
even humans and even those beings,
Pardon?
you really experienced energy. I mean, from the time you recognized it in others on
Yes,
the
I
bus,
did.
and then even there, it was still an energy.
Yes, yes, but a very powerful, strong, um, I wish there was another word that I could use, but that's really the only word that I can sort of think of. Um, but it's just they're beautiful, just beautiful, sublimely beautiful.
I wish we all
Um,
come back artists so we could paint the pictures of what we see.
yeah, a friend of mine, hold on just one second.
Okay.
I'm terribly sorry. A very good friend of mine, but right before the book came out, gave me this. So they had no clue about what I saw. Um, but this is a pretty good, I mean, not that they have wings per se, but you see how this is very,
After my
it's
5-year-old drowning, that's like my angel.
okay.
But I'm
Okay.
seeing your blue from your picture behind, and it's so
Oh, okay.
like that. Just to put it
Okay.
in front of that white door. Yeah,
And
it
see,
was like my
this is
angel.
kind of how they they were represented to me. This type of energy, this type
Translucent.
of very, yes, but so full of this energy that it wasn't as clear because they were just so full of
Yeah,
uh
like that, you look at it, you know it's an object. But when you look at them, you know it's this life and know
yes,
something about that life as far as it's there to protect you and it's so wise or whatever you're picking up. Because I don't know
right.
about you. I just know for me, I had one angel. So
Okay, okay, yeah. So that was one of the things that I one of the other worlds, but there were so many other ones. And but you're not immersed. I wasn't immersed in them, but I was just became aware of some of them. And there's like almost an infinitesimal amount of different worlds and different levels to of the spiritual world. Um, it just like there really is no end. And it's so intelligent and yet um it's so simple. And that was another thing that I really grasped while in the white realm was how simple um the spiritual world really is. We've made it so difficult um here with trying to do different rituals or this and that, but it really just boiled down to just love. Like love was just the generator behind everything that I saw, um, especially in the white realm.
yeah. In my second NDE at 25, that white realm, I saw a panel of, I guess you would say angels. They're beings. They just stood in a panel, like I say, the head and shoulders, but they never moved. It's real, it's like a jury, like they were standing there, and then there was another up row up front, like they were sitting. And then I noticed one sitting up front and center, so I think there was 5 behind and 5 in front, I think. But it's like up front and center, that has to be God. Then I started screaming at him, I gotta go. I can't stay here. But I felt the only thing I sensed from them was just watching and obeying. Like,
Okay.
I recognized this was God. I felt like they were watching, observing, obeying, like going to carry out God's orders, like just this all eyes on me feeling.
Okay. Okay.
And
Well,
I was being a brat.
um,
I know
well,
how to.
they are, I know that they are. You see, they transcend all existence because not all beings can do that, but they can transcend all existences, all dimensions, all forms. So, um, yeah, they're amazing, just amazing. So, yeah. And I'm just seeing, just a portion of that in my mind now. It's just like, wow. Um, but yeah, so that was like a lot of what I saw in the white realm. And then, my guide was infinitely patient with me. And they did introduce themselves to me, but I was never told a name, which to this day I really find interesting, but I understand why. But they did tell me that they were my guide, and they indicated that we were going to travel, and we did. We went out to space, and that was just a whole nother
What did you
amazing
see?
experience. Huh?
What did you see?
Well, I mean, many, many things, many different creatures out in space. There's a lot of travel out in space, more so than,
Creatures. What kind of
yes,
creatures?
like
Were they flying or
I actually drew that at one point I saw a nebula, and it looked at first like just a regular nebula, but it was this humongous humanoid thing. I don't even know what to call it, but it was moving, and it was moving purposely out in space. And it would gather itself up and have like the outline of like a being, like the only way I can describe it is like Casper the Friendly Ghost.
so funny you say that?
Really? Okay. Why?
Because when I drowned when I was 5, when I first was hovering over the pond, I thought, the only thing I know about death is what I saw on Casper the Friendly Ghost. That's the only frame of reference I had. This
But
isn't what I heard
honestly,
about
that's
Sunday
true
school.
though. That's really true. But yeah, and it because it that was another like type creature that didn't really have like a definitive like humanoid form. It did have some type of form though, but when it gathered itself up to travel more, and then it would ease out. And I was fascinated with this whatever it was. I call it the nebula, but I don't know what else to call it, because it was like a creature. There was another creature that have you ever heard of a tardigrade?
Mm-mm.
No. Okay, so the tardigrade is like a microscopic little thing that exists here on Earth or out in space or wherever they say it exists. But I do believe we have it here, and it can withstand like a nuclear bomb. It's just indestructible. Well, I saw something very similar to that on an asteroid, but it was humongous, like the size of like a couple of houses or a building. It was humongous, and I saw this thing um literally on this asteroid, and and the asteroid was just like slowly traveling through, and I believe there was other ones on this asteroid, but I only saw the one at the time. And it wasn't until many years later that I actually saw that little picture of a tardigrade and said, "Oh my God, this is what I look. This is the creature I saw out in space." Except it was much bigger. But
Tardigrade. That's what you're saying?
tardigrade, yes, tardigrade. Um, I saw a lot of alien type ships traveling. Some were going super fast, some were sort of just stationary. Um, and mind you, space is, there's no north, south, east, or west. It's just everywhere in every direction, so I mean, there's so much traffic out there. I saw souls traveling in space, literally, literal orbs traveling. Um, some were like really focused and intent on getting to where they were going, and some were just like sort of like me, just like out there, just taking everything in, you know? And kind of once I not had my fill of that, but I had a pretty good, you know, I saw quite a bit. My guide took us to this other part of space, and I saw these super weird creatures. And I'm just ashamed of myself for not even appreciating it back then, because now I would be like oh my God, I would want to know and see them again. But
Back in our human brain, we think of these things.
it was just when I describe them, you'll understand. But I was 17 and I couldn't relate to them in any way, And mind you, fantasy back then was not like it is now. So it was just too foreign. But anyway, these creatures were like this bio crystallized being, and they had vertical slits for eyes, and when their eyes opened, it was just this black
That's
whatever.
scary.
It was extremely scary, and that was the entirety of their face, the vertical slits. And so I just couldn't relate to them, and not that I acted bored, but I'm sure I was just like, what is this? I had no appreciation for it. And my guy did tell me that these beings provided security for sort of that section of space, which was not in our solar system, but it was in our galaxy, I was told. And then my guy took us to another part of our galaxy, not solar system, but our galaxy. And I just have to say this. I saw like planets that I know were in different dimensions that we could never see from Earth, but that are there, and that exist, and that are actually literally in our solar system. And today I can appreciate that, especially as more and more things come out now about different exoplanets or planets. Then they're discovering more and more. But to see this back then, it was mind blowing, especially to someone who just knew about the 9 planets, excuse me. But anyway, we were taken to I was taken to another section of our galaxy, and to an actual planet this time. And it was a water world type of planet, made completely mostly of water. And it had the most beautiful blue sun. And these 3 moons that were just super close to the planet. And the moons were like beige and red and green. And the way they displayed themselves, their presence was like the sun was here, and the planets were like really not far from the sun. And they were the moons were not far from the sun, and they were so close to the sun. It's fascinating. And that view I can't ever get out of my head. But this water world there were actually mer creatures, or I call them mer humans, mer people. We would call them, I guess, here mermaids.
Wow.
But yeah. But they don't look completely like the mermaids we're used to seeing. They're not all gorgeous looking.
I'm curious, did you have any kind of religious background at all before your NDE?
Not really. I mean, I did go to a Catholic school for a
Okay.
couple of years before the NDE, but I never partook of the Catholicism.
Mhm.
Um, and I did go to Christian Science Sunday school, but I never became like a member. It was just like my mom had us go each Sunday. But that was the extent of my, I
Because
didn't have any type of religious.
your experiences is just sounded to me like, just of the few, indies I've heard, like someone who hasn't had like a relationship with God or with Jesus, or that kind of spiritual upbringing, because you're experiencing like the world.
Well, I've always known there was a being, a source, that I definitely knew. And that was like before I even got here. And it just carried over. I just didn't know, I just never confined my understanding or belief in a God or a source into a specific religion, shall we say. So no, I wasn't religious at all, but I did have a spiritual belief system, put it that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just curious.
Yeah. Um, but anyway, these these um these mer creatures, mer people, extremely intelligent. Um, and there were so many different creatures underneath the water, all different kinds, and most of them were sentient, very intelligent. Um, and my guide had told me at one point that this our Earth was seeded with some creatures from this world. Um, and I got confirmation of that. I When I was down there, my guide took us below water at one point, and I saw this humongous fat creature that was sort of standing upright on its tail, and it seemed very
Said,
intelligent.
oh, you said creature.
Yes, a
At first I
creature,
thought you
not a
said
mer
preacher.
person. No, no, a creature. Sorry. Um, and it was very big, very fat. And so I had never seen a creature like this ever before. There was a couple creatures under that water I had never seen and still have not seen. But a lot I have, like they had seahorses, but they were the size of like cars or bigger. Um, but anyway, this one particular creature had no clue what it was. And years later, when I was stationed in Florida, I was at a friend's house and we walked out their backyard and to the dock. They had a boat. And this creature swims up. And my friend says, "Oh, wow, we're lucky today. The manatee, is visiting us." And I looked at this creature, and it was this exact creature I saw on this planet underwater. And I literally dropped to my knees and kind of burst out into tears because that was like a personal confirmation for me of this NDE. You know, mind you, I'm from Philadelphia. We don't know anything about manatees at all. Never heard of them. Okay. I guarantee you there's still people here that have no clue what a manatee is. But anyway, um, it was this exact creature that I saw on this other world. And so it was nice. And my friend had no clue why I was crying. Like, and I couldn't even explain it to her, you know. But but anyway, my guide was able to speak with some of these mer people who were extremely intelligent. They weren't hostile. They weren't violent. They just looked ferocious, but that's just how they looked. But my guide was able to communicate with them, and they did communicate some back and forth. Um, and there was like comprehension, and my guy was able to communicate. The most fascinating thing was like these creatures use different type of communication, like bubbles or pulses of energy or light. Um, and my guide somehow was able to understand all of it. And I saw the back and forth amongst them, and it was just fascinating. I didn't understand um any of it really, but
The
my
ways
guide.
of communication is definitely expanded over on the other side.
Well, yeah, and my guide said there's a universal language, and if we tap into it, we can understand, you know, all, so which I totally believe and have seen it in action, but like I said, these mer people were not hostile or even mean. They just were inquisitive, and I was too, um but like I said, I can tell you, they are a little frightening, looking at it from my human, uh you know
The most I can comprehend the telepathic communication that goes on over there to explain it on Earth is when you look in an animal's eyes and you realize what's wrong with them because you don't have any verbal communication at all.
right, right,
But sometimes, with a pet, you can just look, or you say someone that can't speak for whatever reason, and
right,
and have no like hand gestures or anything way of communicating. It's just that look in the eyes and get it. And it makes me think of people like say this really awful person is attacking them and they say their eyes just went black. And there's just certain instincts we have that are just like ingrained in us that we're not taught, that just exists. I don't know. Maybe I'm going off on a weird thing, but
no, no, remember, my guy communicated with me throughout the entire NDE, but it was never verbally, of course, because we were both spiritual in our spiritual form, but they were able to send me images, emotions, thoughts, symbols, all kinds of methods to give me a complete picture and understanding of what they were trying to convey. And so, yeah, there is that communication, like you say, you can look into a dog's eyes. Yeah, because when you're looking in those eyes, so much is conveyed through that, you know, they're feeling, what you're sensing. So yeah, and that communication is on a soul to soul level, you know, and there was no miscommunication between myself and my guide at any point. And as a matter of fact, on a few different in a few different times, it was able to actually read my thoughts and my heart, um you know which was not embarrassing, but a little you know and it didn't even really feel intrusive, to be honest with you, but it was like, wow, like that's one of my deepest thoughts, like how did that, type of thing, so yeah.
I have a disabled sister. Every time I go with her to a doctor, hospital, emergency room, they look at her file and they see someone that don't exist. And I'm sitting here trying to explain, no, 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 that's not it. Because
Right.
she has schizophrenia, because she has this and that. They assume so much about her, and she's a total case of her own that
And
doesn't
don't you
fit.
want to tell them, look into her eyes,
Yes.
see the real,
Yeah. Then
see into her
yeah.
heart.
Every time I'll tell them and tell them and tell them, and they don't listen to me. And then at the end of the day, they realize I knew what I was talking about. But
See,
it is put your file down and look at her.
you see her through that heart to heart connection. You know, not everyone can do that.
Yeah, I've been her voice, for years because she can't communicate very much.
Oh, that's
And so,
beautiful. That
and
is
so,
beautiful.
I go in and I'm looking at her, I'm observing her and watching her, and then I start picking up on what we're dealing with here. And it's something different all the time, but it's just that communication that doesn't go with words, like what you're experiencing over there.
It was, it was there. One of the things I was shown was, you remember I was telling you that it knew like my deepest thoughts and feelings on certain things. And one of the things my guy told me was that everyone comes here with a agenda, a soul agenda, what the soul wants to accomplish. And my guy told me, no, you're not supposed to be a ballerina. And it's funny because I had been taking ballet for many years.
Oh,
Yeah. And I wanted, like, I thought I wanted to be a ballerina, but I hadn't really put all the work into it, but it was like the top thing, I kind of wanted to do. And my guy was like, no, that's not your agenda, you know. By all means, do that if you want, but that's not what you came here to do, And I was kind of shown a personal agenda that I came here to do, and they were right about about it. But there was a lot of teaching, a lot of things I learned and saw, during this session. Um, and I'm still processing some of it. I learned a lot about reincarnation, um, about how we do and why we reincarnate, excuse me, and karma and the mechanism behind karma. You know, it's not the good and bad type thing we think. It's just that everything must balance. The universe is love, and love is perfect balance. And so when you deviate from that, things have to be brought back in balance. And basically, that's what karma is. It's not like Pegi, goes slap someone and Pegi's going to get slapped, but the energy that Pegi put out to slap someone, that energy went out negatively. It has to come back to a balanced spot of love. And
I put
how
out bad energy one time. I was so mad at somebody and I put out bad energy. And I was like, God, you just need to have something drop on top of her head. And a tree landed on top of her trailer in a storm and cracked her head wide open.
oh wow.
And so I'm
Oh
sure it had
wow.
nothing to do with me. But I was just like, this person just hurt me so bad and didn't care.
Bad, right, right,
That
right.
happened. Like not long after, like that did not just happen. You gotta watch what you pray for.
You
I
really
don't think
do.
God hurts people for us. I don't. I'm sure it's a coincidence, but you know.
No, but still, you probably felt some type of connect with that, and that's a horrific
Like, oops.
feeling. Yeah, right. It's a totally horrific feeling. Absolutely.
I
And
think it's kind of like I've heard people say, "I wish they were dead," and then they died. They just feel
oh
awful. I've heard of people say, "Well, we don't do that. We don't have that power." But
no, we don't. And that was, something else, but no, we don't have that power. Thank goodness.
yeah, we'd all be
Yeah.
getting trees on top of our
Right.
head.
Right. Yeah. But you know, there was so much understanding and comprehension on my end from my guide, who was so loving and wanted no kind of applause or admiration or anything like that. There was just such a loving, giving energy from them, and to impart so much to me, I'm so appreciative. And fortunately, they know that. Um,
Did you come back with that, like picking up on energies and stuff? It's like naturally intuitive
yes, I
that you could
did.
just,
Yes, I did. Yes, when I came back, I was very super hyper aware of many different things. Real quickly, I'll just relay this story. When I came back, maybe 2-3 years after that, my first military station, I was very young, and I was bouncing checks all over Tucson, Arizona, and for dumb stuff too, by the way, like getting pizza and stuff, because I didn't make that much. I was a whatever, low rank, and my first sergeant at the time called me into his office. Loved the guy, great guy. Calls me into his office, and he's kind of like, giving me a little verbal tongue lashing about the bounce checks, and we don't do that, and this and that. And as he's doing this, honest to goodness, Peggy, I looked at him and I just knew he was getting ready to die. And that was the very first time I kind of got that on someone. And it was so overwhelming, and I wanted to cry. And I may have gotten a little teary, and I know that he thought it was because he was giving me that tongue lashing, and it had nothing to do with that. It was because I just knew he was going to die. And within 2 weeks, he had dropped dead of a heart attack. And nicest man ever, loved him dearly. But anyway, yes, I was much more sensitive. I could tell when someone was lying. I could see some future events. Yes. And I call it because I guess, the more contact you have with the other side, as you probably know, you become a little less tethered to this world and a little bit more aware of the other world, And so that's kind of what happened. Yes. So to answer your question, yes, absolutely.
I think of it as another instinct. Like we learned these other instincts over there, and we come back, we still have those instincts.
Yes. And if we don't ignore them, but if we embrace them, they get stronger.
Yeah.
They get much stronger.
And I think talking about our NDEs makes them stronger.
Oh my goodness, absolutely. Because like you and I just said, when we started, more and more comes out. The more we process it, the more we see and become aware of what all happened. So absolutely. Yes.
And it makes sense, with anything, the more you use it, more, the better you get
the better
at
it gets. Absolutely. Yes. And I tell you another thing too, because of my experience in the white realm, like I told you, and I connect to my soul. One thing I can say about myself, I just don't have it in me to be cruel or mean or hateful. No, I just can't, and I'm so happy about that. And that
I was naturally that way. And then in the last few years, I've just got this gut full. And I don't know, when I turned 60, it's like, I'm not being walked on anymore. I'm a senior citizen now.
No, absolutely. Now there's a difference between not being cruel and not being a doormat either.
That's true.
I refuse.
That's true. Cruel is intentional. No. I don't care. Doormat is step off.
Oh, absolutely. As a matter of fact, I've gotten much stronger in defending myself against stuff like that because of that. So absolutely. But I mean that inherent cruelty and evil, and no, none of that. That was just
I've always had low tolerance for people that get together and connive against one person.
Oh yeah.
Intentional.
Yeah.
Girl meanness, and guys jump in too. Gossip at workplace, stuff like that. I've always avoided that stuff. I don't want to know what so and so you think they're doing this.
Right.
For that.
Because you realize how connected we all are. We are so connected, it's not even funny. We are very connected. And we're all connected by that love. Love is the bottom line to everything.
Yeah. And two, I just never cared. If they're doing X, Y, and Z, I don't care what they're doing.
Right.
To me, I care about going home, making dinner, and taking care of my kids, and come to work tomorrow.
Right.
Have the energy. to care who's doing it.
Right, right. Live and let live for sure. Definitely,
So
definitely.
how did your the illness and your NDE, how did it all end up?
Well, so right before I was released to come back, my guy basically told me that my heart was damaged. It would be healed, but this was the only time it would ever be healed. So don't ever take pills of any type like that again, because I would not be looked after like this. Um, and I never have, by the way, never have. Even though they weren't like really pharmaceutical type pills, but still, I was so careless with them. I've
Did
never.
anybody on that bus recognize that you needed help? You just like woke up and got or
Well,
come
when
out
I
of this and
it was a little process though. It wasn't I just boom came right back in. I mean, it was like going through mud, coming back in. And I know now why, your bodies have to reposition themselves and get right and sync up to everything. And that's what happened. And I did feel my heart, or I could hear it when I first came back in. I could hear it in my ears at first, but it sounded normal. And that was such a wonderful feeling. And then I didn't hear it anymore. And I was so happy because, who wants to hear their heartbeat in their ears?
right,
Right.
right.
And remember, that was the start of all this. And not only that, when I first came back, I couldn't see, and this film just kind of came like down over my eyes, and then I could see. And it took me a while to kind of get my limbs going, but I did. And you know I was like, okay, I was basically okay, a little disorientated, but otherwise okay. So but no one noticed anything, because I couldn't talk about it. I mean, what could
Yeah.
I say? Like, how could I, like, hey, I just, was on
What
another
year
planet.
was it?
Pardon?
What year was it?
Oh, well, if I tell you that, you're going to know my age.
Oh, okay. I'll know your age. So, well, I'm 62. So I'm
Okay, well,
proud of my
good for
age.
you.
Lucky for you.
But here's the thing, you don't have my grays either. Okay.
Color it.
Huh?
Color it. You can see the silver. Yeah, I colored my
I'm,
hair.
I'm, but I'm around there. I'm around there.
Okay. Yeah. Well, my first NDE was 1966 when I was 5, and the second one I was 25 in 1986. But back then, I'm sure, as you were 19,
I was
you didn't
17.
know. uh,
17. I was
okay,
17.
17. Okay.
Yes.
Um, okay, girl last night was 19 in a car wreck. Okay. So there was no word near death
There
experience.
wasn't. I had no clue what had just happened to me. And there was no way to even describe it. And no, I had to process that for years and figure out what the heck I just went through. I didn't know. I had no clue.
I knew what I would think if someone told me,
Right, right,
and
right,
I didn't want people to think, oh my gosh, what a liar, what a crazy
right.
person, what attention seeking.
Exactly,
I didn't
exactly.
want that. And you knew what we were sane enough to know how people to react. And crazy people don't do that. Crazy people are just crazy people. They just say whatever hallucinating is, happening. They don't say, oh, people will think this or that. They don't do that,
Right. Yeah,
I
I kept
guess.
that in many, many, many years. It wasn't until honestly last year that I wrote the book that anyone had knew. My family didn't even know. My immediate family had no clue. They didn't. They knew I was different and was a bit, sensitive and aware of certain things, but they knew nothing about this. Nothing. Not even my poor mother.
And I'm so thankful for the internet and NDEs being online where we
Yes.
can learn.
And people like you, Peggy.
Yeah, because I'm not going to be able to talk about this to my neighbor, people in my community, or anybody I run
Right.
into. It's going to
Right.
take, finding like people and then getting on the internet and meeting up and talking. And
Like I
a lot
said,
of,
people like you putting it out there, it's wonderful. It's beautiful. It's a wonderful thing.
and I was so happy, before we started, you said you want a conversation because I get to talk to somebody, where usually people just want me to be quiet and let the person talk. And I know they'll be in the comments on your video too. And like, why don't you shut up? Because I don't
No,
want
and she's
to.
correct. To whoever's listening, I wanted a conversation. I wanted her input. I requested it.
Because it's so much fun to get with another NDE
Oh,
and
and it's
dive in there and dig at it.
isn't it so soul satisfying to be able to just relay it and talk and back and forth with it? It really is.
Yeah, it's like you was in the white light too. You saw the beans too. You traveled through a tunnel too, or whatever it is. People did, like they did
Right.
it too. And some stuff, I'm like, I don't understand that. And for a long time, people talk about life review, and I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. I think you're making that up. But then I realized, I thought, was that mine a life review? Because I was in my second NDE, I was showing God my life. He wasn't showing me.
Okay.
I was
Okay.
going through every abuse I ever went through, explaining
Okay.
why I can't leave my kids down there on earth without a mother's love and protection, because this is what
Well,
happened to me without it. Then I've got to go back. So,
wow. Wow. Wow.
and I think I fought God and, and I won.
Obviously, right?
Because I was told the answer was no. It
That
was
to
not
not come back? You
right. I
couldn't come
told the
back?
answer was no. Mhm.
Wow.
I was begging to go back, was demanding to go back, raise my kids, and the answer
Wow.
was no. It was my
Wow.
time.
Mm.
And that's before I ever heard of people being told, it's not your time, you got to go back. And so I started hearing NDEs. I'm thinking, maybe mine wasn't an NDE because that's not what I was told. I don't know what mine was. It was definitely something. It saved my life. Because of my NDE, I refused to leave home from the hospital. They said, you're fine, and discharged me. I was like, I'm not going home. I wouldn't tell them why. I just knew I was about dead here, and I wouldn't have my kids finding my dead body. If my doctor's not
Wow.
going to fix me, I'm going to be dead here soon, and I'm not going to do it to them.
Oh,
So yeah, it saved my life because my doctor come in the next morning and did another ultrasound last, and he seen the internal bleeding. It was the biggest tool of pregnancy they ever saw. And if I hadn't had that NDE, I would have died
you
in
would have
the live
died.
bed.
Isn't that
Mhm.
something? And during one of my experiences, I did see that we have certain death dates. So maybe you were allowed to continue on to another death date. We have different death dates we're allowed. So that's fascinating though that you
I
can
kept dying all
cancel.
night, but I didn't have another NDE. I just kept dying, and I knew I was starting to catch on. This isn't passing out. This is dying, even though it wasn't, because I knew it was in heaven. In the wheelchair when I first got there, and I died, had the whole NDE. But during the night in the hospital, I kept waking up, and I'm like, wait a minute, I stopped passing out. I'm dying, and I said, God, I know you can't keep bringing me back. I said, please keep me alive till morning. Maybe my doctor will come in, do an ultrasound, finding out what's wrong. And that's exactly what happened.
You know what I find interesting with that though, Peggy, is most people demand to leave and you demanded to stay.
Yeah, I had kids. I had to take, I was very abused growing up. And I did not want one thing that happened to me to happen to my
Happened
boys.
to your
I
kid. Okay.
protected them, kept them away from my biological family. And I was so protective. I hardly let anybody babysit.
Wow.
And I just wanted them to have the best life possible that I never had. And to leave and not be able to take care of them, I could only imagine what was going to happen to them.
Wow. Well, fortunately,
And
you didn't have to imagine.
right. And so now I live with gratitude every day. I say I won, but no, God allowed it, it wasn't me. I pitched a fit and threw, and I pled my case, and then I finally accepted it. And then I got real scared, thought, oh my gosh, what, I thought, okay, fine, I'll stay here and wait till my sons come to heaven when they're old men. I'll just sit here and wait for them. And then it's like, oh my gosh, what if they hate God because they've lost their mother at such a young age? Because I'd heard of that before.
Mm,
And what if they never come to heaven? Then I was sobbing all over again. And then I cried out to Jesus, who's now sitting beside God in this panel of people I can hardly see, like your door. And
okay.
I my hands come up from my face. I said, who else will teach them about you? and then I'm back in the wheelchair. But there's this tiny little speck where I'm looking down at my body, humped over, and the nurses are talking. But I'm back in that wheelchair, like, oh my gosh, I was just in heaven, accepting it. Now I'm back. But then I felt like Cinderella, like you got till midnight to get this fixed.
Right.
You
But it
know?
did. It got fixed because the
Yeah.
doctor noticed that something was wrong.
Yeah, but he didn't that night though.
No,
You
but he
know,
did in the
he
morning.
did in the
Enough
morning.
in time, enough to save you, right?
Yes, I'm eternally grateful for God allowing me to come back and raise my boys because a lot of women don't. They die these dual pregnancies.
Yes. Well, typically they do kill. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So my sons are, parents now, and my oldest one's a grandfather, and so I'm a great grandma, and I'm just
Oh,
bad stuff happens to everybody, but then I think, but you know what? I got to see my kids grow up.
oh, see,
So
that's
you could ask
beautiful.
for more than that.
That's beautiful. Absolutely.
A lot of people take for granted. They think, oh, woe is me. This happened, that happened. This ain't fair. This ain't right. And I get in those ruts, and I think, I got to see my kids grow up. Who can
Yes.
ask for more?
Yes.
Well, thank you. Is there anything else you want to leave us with, or
Thank
you've got a book,
you. I
or you?
appreciate it. Yes, I do. It's my near-death experience from A to Z, and it's available just about everywhere online, I would assume. Definitely Amazon, right? And I do have a YouTube group. I don't know if you put stuff in the comments
Sure.
or
Uh-huh.
they can click in there. Yeah. And I think I've sent that to you.
Is
So
your YouTube called the same thing? I couldn't find any emails from you other than the
I'm
Zoom
not,
link. I don't know.
wow. Okay, I will try to resend it through Messenger, I guess. But yeah,
I mean, I've got your book and I've got your website.
not website, but
It's
the Facebook group, or was
Yes, the
it?
Facebook group. I
Okay,
got
okay.
that. And then you say you have a YouTube channel too?
Yes, I'll message
Okay.
you that
Okay.
that way.
Okay.
But it's been wonderful, and I just thank you so much. And I loved the format because, like you said, it's just nice going back and forth, and
These need to be fun for us, not just for the
absolutely.
audience,
Yes,
entertainment. They need to
yes,
be fun because I think I look at it as science. When you and I get together and it is filmed and other people can watch and learn, not just sit there and be entertained. Oh, that's a good NDE. Oh, that's interesting.
right.
But there's so much more to it than that.
It is, it is, it is.
So
Definitely. So thank you. I appreciate giving me the outlet for that.
thank you. It's nice meeting you.
You too. You too.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Take care.